Udila Aruna Puraba Bhage Dvijamani Gora Amani Jage Udila Aruna Puraba Bhage Dvijamani Gora Amani Jage Bhakata Samuha Loya Shate Gelo Nagara Braje Bhakata Samuha Loya Shate Gelo Nagara Braje Tatai Tatai Bajaloko Khana Khana Tahe Janjararo Tatai Tatai Bajaloko Khana Khana Tahe Janjararo Preme Dhala Dhala Shonara Anga Charane Nupure Baje Preme Dhala Dhala Shonara Anga Charane Nupure Baje Mukunda Madhava Jadava Hari Bole na bolore badana bhori Mukunda Madhava Jadava Hari Bole na bolore badana bhori Miche nidabashe gelore rati Divasha Sharira Shaje Miche Nidavashe Gelore Rati Divasha Sharira Shaje Emona Durlabha Manava Deho Payaki Koro Bhavana Keho Emona Durlabha Manava Deho Payaki koro bhavana keho Ebena bhajire jashoda shuta Charame poribe laje Ebena bhajiro jashoda sutta Charame poribe laje Jivana Anita Janahash Udita tapana hoile ashta Dinagelo boli hoi bebyashta Udita tapana hoile ashta Dinagelo boli hoi bebyashta Tabekeno ebe alasha hoi Na bhaja hridoya raje Tabekeno ebe alasha hoi Na bhaja hridoya raje Jivana anita janna hasha Tahina nabidha vipada bha Jivan anita janna hasha Tahina nabidha vipada bha Namashraya kori jatane tumi Takaha apana kaje Namashraya kori jatane tumi Takaha apana kaje Jivera kalyana shadhana kam Tahina navid Jagate ashiye madhura nam Jivera kalyana shadhana kam Jagate ashiye madhura nam Avidyatimira tapanna rupe Hridga gane viraje Avidyatimira tapanna rupe Hridga gane viraje Krishna nam Shudha Korya Pan Jura Bhakati Vinoda Pran Krishna nam Shudha Korya Pan Jura Bhakati Vinoda Pran Nama bina kichu nahiko aro choda bhuvana maje Nama bina kichu nahiko aro choda bhuvana majhe. Haribol. When a tinge of red on the eastern horizon heralded the sunrise, the jewel of the twice-born Lord Gaurasundar immediately awakened. Taking his devotees with him, he went all over the countryside, visiting the towns and villages of Nadia. You want to get a mic and read some? Page 38. You have a microphone?
The mridangas resounded, tathai, the cymbals chimed in time, and Lord Gauranga's foot bells jinged as his golden form trembled lightly in ecstatic love of God.
Go ahead.
Lord Chaitanya called out to the townsfolk, "You spend your nights uselessly sleeping and your days decorating your bodies. Now just fill your mouths with the vibration of the holy names, Mukunda Madhava, Yadava Hari, chanting without offense."
You have achieved the rare human body. Don't you care for this gift? If you do not serve the darling of Yashoda now, great sorrow awaits you at death.
Each time the sun rises and sets, a day passes and is lost. Then why do you remain idle and refuse to serve the Lord of the heart?
Understand this essential fact. Life is temporary and full of all kinds of miseries. So make it your only business to take shelter of the holy name and always engage in his service.
Desiring to bless all souls, the sweet name of Krishna had descended to the material world and now shines like the sun in the sky of the heart, destroying the darkness of ignorance.
Drink the pure nectar of the holy name of Krishna and thus satisfy the soul of Bhakti Vinod. There is nothing but the holy name within all the 14 worlds.
Lord Gauranga is calling, "Wake up, sleeping souls, wake up, sleeping souls. You have slept so long on the lap of the witch Maya."
You came into this world of birth and death, saying, "My Lord, I will certainly worship you." But you have forgotten this promise and remained in great ignorance.
"I have descended just to save you, except for me, who is your friend."
I have brought the medicine to eradicate the disease of illusion. Now pray for this Harinama Maha Mantra and take it.
Bhakti Vinoda fell at the lotus feet of Lord Gauranga, and after begging for the holy name, he received it Maha Mantra.
Let's sing that part of the song. We didn't sing that yet. If you could take the kartals. Wake up, sleeping souls. Jeev jago, Gora chanda bole. Jeev jago, Gora chanda bole. Kota nidra jao maya pishachi rakole. Bolo. Kota nidra jao maya pishachi rakole. Pojiva volea eshe Sangsara vitore boli jiva bolia eshe sangsara vitore bulian rohile tumi abhijara bore. রহিলে তুমি অবিদ্যার বরে, তোমারে লইতে আমি হইনু অবতারা, তোমারে লইতে আমি হইনু অবতারা। আমি বিনা বন্ধু আরো কে আছে তোমার, আমি বিনা বন্ধু আরো কে আছে তোমার। এনেছি ঔষধে মায়া নাশিবার লাগি, এনেছি ঔষধি মায়া নাশিবার লাগি। হরিনাম মহামন্ত্র লাও তুমি মাগি, হরিনাম মহামন্ত্র লাও তুমি মাগি। ভক্তি বিনোদ প্রভু চরণে পড়িয়া, ভক্তি বিনোদ প্রভু চরণে পড়িয়া, সে হরিনাম মন্ত্র লইল মাগিয়া, সেই হরিনাম মন্ত্র লইল মাগিয়া। হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে হরে, হরে রাম 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 হরে হরে। Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Haribo. Yeah, keep practicing this kartals. You'll get it. You're doing better already, and it's just like clapping your hands. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's a good thing to be able to know how to do, to play instruments and stuff. So normally we start with Brahma Samhita, and I thought we would sing some songs first and maybe give other people a chance to get here. The whole Brahma Samhita is here in the in Sanskrit in the little blue book, and we can chant it together in Sanskrit. Ishvarak Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govindaha Sarva Karana Karanam Sahasra Patra Kamalang Gokulakyang Mahatpadam Tatkarnikarang Tadhama Tadanantang Shasambhavam Karnikarang Mahadyantram Shatkonam Vajrakilakam Shad Anga Shatpadisthanam Prakritya Purushena Cha Premananda Mahananda Rasenavastitam Hiyat Jyoti Rupena Manuna Kama Bijena Sangatam Tatkinjalkang Tadangshanang Tatpatrani Shriyamapi Chaturasrang Tatparitaha Shvetadvipakyamadbhutam Chaturasrang Chaturmurtesh Chaturdhama Chatushkritam Chaturbhik Purushartaischa Chaturbhir Hetubhivritam Shulair Dashabhiranadham Ordvadho Dikvatikshwapi Ashtabhir Nidhibhir Jushtam Ashtabhik Siddhibhistata Manurupaischa Dashabhir Dikpalaik Parito Vritam Shamair Gauraischa Raktaischa Shuklaischa Parshadarshabhaihi Shobhitang Shaktibhistabhir Adbhutabhik Samantataha Evang Jyotirmayo Devaha Saranandak Paratparaha Atma Ramasya Tasyasti Prakrityana Samagamaha Mayaya Ramamanasya Naviyogasthaya Saha Atmana Ramaya Reme Tyaktakalang Sishrikshaya Niyati Sarama Devi Tatpriya Tatvashang Tada Talingang Bhagavan Shambhur Jyoti Rupak Sanatanaha Ya Yonik Sapara Shaktihi Kamo Bijang Mahadharehe Linga Yonyatmika Jata Ima Maheshwari Prajaha Shaktiman Purushak Soyang Linga Rupi Maheshwaraha Tasmina Virabhu Linge Mahavishnur Jagatpatihi Sahasra Shirsha Purushahak Sahasrakshak Sahasrapat Sahasrabahur Vishvatma Sahasrangshak Sahasrasuhu Narayanaksa Bhagavan Apastasmat Sanatanat Avirasit Karanarno Nidhik Sankarshanatmakaha Yoga Nidrangatas Tasmin Sahasrangshak Swayang Mahan Tad Roma Bila Jaleshu Bijang Sankarshanasya Cha Haimanyandani Jatani Mahabhuta Vritani Tu Pratyandam Evam Ekangshad Vishati Swayam Sahasramurdha Vishvatma Mahavishnu Sanatanaha Vamangad Asrijat Vishnung Dakshinangad Prajapatim Jyotirlingamayang Shambhung Korchate Shadavastrajat Ahankaratmakang Vishvang Tasmade Tadvyajayata Atatais Trividhair Veshair Leelam Udvahatakila Yoga Nidra Bhagavati Tasya Shri Riva Sangata Shishrikshayang Tato Nabhes Tasya Padmang Vanir Yayo Nalinam Brahmano Lokamadbhutam Tatvani Purvarudhani Karanani Parasparam Samavaya Prayogacha Vibhinani Pritak Pritak Chit Shaktya Sajjamanota Bhagavan Adi Purushaha Yo Jayanmaya Devo Yoga Nidrama Kalpayat Yo Jayitva Tutanyeva Pravivesha Swayang Guhang Pravishte Tasmingstu Jivatma Pratibudhyate Sunityo Nitya Sambandhak Prakritischa Paraivasa Evang Sarvatma Sambandhang Nabhyang Padmang Harer Abhut Tatra Brahma Bhavat Bhuyas Chaturvedi Chaturmukhaha Sanjato Bhagavat Shaktya Tatkalang Kilachoditaha Sishrikshayang Mating Chakre Purva Sanskara Sanskritaha Dadarshake Kevalang Tvantam Nanyat Kim Api Sarvataha Uvacha Puratas Tasmai Tasya Divya Saraswati Kama Krishnaya Govinda He Gopi Jana Ityapi Vallabhaya Priya Vahner Dmantrang Te Tasiti Priyam Tapastvang Tapa Etena Tapasidhir Bhavishyati Atha Tepe Sasuchirang Prinan Govindam Avyayam Shvetadvipapating Krishnang Golokastang Paratparam Prakritya Rupinya Paryupasitam Sahasradala Sampanne Kotikinjalka Pringhite Bhumischintamanis Tatra Karnikare Mahasane Samasinang Chidanandang Jyotirupang Sanatanam Shabda Brahmamayang Venum Vadayantam Mukhambuje Vilasani Kanavritang Swairang Shairabhishtutam Ata Venu Ninadasya Traimurti Maikatihi Spuranti Praviveshashu Mukabjani Swayambhuvaha Gayatringayatastasmad Adhikatya Sarojajaha Sanskritaschari Gununa Dvijatam Agamattataha Traya Prabudhota Vidhir Vigyata Tattvasagaraha Tushtava Veda Sarena Stotrena Ninakeshavam Chintamani Prakara Sadma Sukalpa Vriksha Lakshabriteshu Surabhira Vipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Shatasang Brahmasevyamanam Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Venum Kwananta Maravinda Dalaya Taksham Barhabatang Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobhang Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamalya Vangshi Ratnangatang Pranaya Keli Kalavilasam Shyamang Tribhanga Lalitang Niyata Prakashang Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vritti Manti Pashyanti Panti Kalayanti Chirang Jakanti Ananda Chinmaya Sarujvala Vigrahasya Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Advaitamachyutamanadimananta Rupam Madhyang Purana Purushang Navayovanang Cha Vedeshu Durlabhamatma Bhakta Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Pantaistu Koti Shatavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Munipungavana Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tattve Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Ekopya Saura Jayatung Jagadanda Kotim Yat Shaktirasti Jagadanda Chayayadantaha Andantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastham Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavi Tatyo Manujasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhushaha Suktaryameva Nigama Pratitaikstuvanti Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabhis Tabhirya Eva Nijarupataya Kilabhihi Goloka Eva Nivasatya Kilatma Bhuto Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Premanjanachurita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksataiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yang Shama Sundaramachintya Gunaswarupam Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Ramadi Murti Shukalani Amena Tishtan Nanavatara Makarod Bhubaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayang Samabhavat Paramak Pumanyo Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadanda Koti Koti Shvashesha Vasudhadi Vibhuti Bhinnam Tad Brahma Nishkalamanantam Ashesha Bhutam Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Maya hi yasya jagadanda shatani sute Traikunya tad vishaya veda vitaya mana Sattvabalambi parasattvam vishuddha sattvam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Ananda chinmaya rasatmataya manaksu yah praninang pratiphalan smaratam upetya. Lilayatena bhuvanani jayatya jasram govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Golokanamni nijadhamni tale chatasya devi mahesha haridhama suteshu teshu. Te te prabhava nityaya vihitascha yena govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Shrishti sthiti pralaya sadhana shakti rekha chayeva yasya bhuvanani bhibharti durga. Ichhanurupamapi yasya chacheshtate sa govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Kshirang yata dadhi vikara vishesha yogat sanjayate nahitatak pratak asti hetoho. Yaksham bhutam apitata samupaiti karyad govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Diparchire vahida shantaram abhyupetya dipayate vivrita hetu samana dharma. Yastadrigeva hicha vishnutaya vibhati govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Yakaranarnava jale bhajati sma yoga nidramananta jagadanda saroma kupaha. Adhara shaktim avalambya parang swamurting govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Yasyaika nishvasita kalamathavalambya jivanti loma vilaja jagadandanatha. Vishnur mahansa iha yasya kala vishesho govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Bhasvan yatashma shakaleshu nijeshu teja sriyankiyat prakatayat yapi tadvaratra. Brahmaya esha jagadanda vidhana karta govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Yatpada pallava yugang vinidhaya kumbha dvandve pranama samaye sakanadhi rajaha. Vignan vihantu malamasya jagatrayasya govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Agnir mahika ganamambu maruddhishascha kalastathatma manasiti jagatrayani. Yasmad bhavanti vibhavanti vishanti yangcha govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Yachakshuresha sabita sakala grahanang raja samasta suramurti rashesha tejaha. Yasyagyaya brahmati sanghritakala chakro govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. Dharmota papa nichaya shrutayasta pangsi brahmadikita pataga vadhayascha jivaha. Yaddatta matra vibhava prakata prabhava govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Yastvindra gopa matavendra mahosva karma bandhanu rupa phala bhajana matanoti. Karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajang govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Yang krodha kama sahaja pranayadi bhiti vatsalya moha guru gaurava sevya bhavahi. Sanchintya tasya sadrishing tanam apurete govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Shriya kantaha kantaha parama purusha kalpataravo druma bhumis chintamani ganamayi toyamamritam katha ganang natyang api vangshi priyasaki Chidanandang jyotik paramapi tadasvadyamapi cha sayatra kshirabhi srabati surabhibhyascha sumahan nimeshardhakyo va vrajati nahi yatrappa samayaha bhaje shvetatdvipam tamaham iha golokam itiyam vidantaste santakshiti virala chara katipaye Atovacha Mahabhishnur Bhagavantang Prajapatim Brahman Mahatva Vijnane Praja Sarge Chachenmatihi Pancha Shloki Mimang Vidyang Vatsa Dattang Nibodhame Prabhudhe Jnana Bhaktibhyam Atmanyananda Chinmayi Udetyanutama Bhaktir Bhagavat Prema Lakshana Pramana istat sadachara istat abhyasaya nirantaram bodhayan atmanatmanang bhaktimapyutamang labhet yasya shreyaskarang nasti yaya nivritamapnuyat ya sadhayati mameva bhakting tameva sadhayet dharmananyan parityajya mamekang bhaja vishvasan Yadrishi Shraddha Siddhir Bhavati Tadrishi Kurvan Nirantarang Karma Loko Yam Anuvartate Tenaiva Karmana Dhyayang Mang Parang Bhakti Michati Ahang Hi Vishvasya Characharasya Bijang Pradhanang Prakritik Pumangscha Maya Hitang Teja Idang Vibharshi Vidhe Vidhehi Tvam Ato Jaganti Ishvarak Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadi Radhi Govindaha Sarva Karana Karanam Iti Shri Brahma Samhita Sampurnam Harihi Om Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadishtane. Hare Krishna, welcome. So today, Hare Krishna, they asked me to speak about Bhishmadeva. There's a 5-day period at the end of Kartik called Bhishma Panchaka. And even though I'm supposed to be the speaker and supposed to be the authority who knows about what I'm talking about, I don't really know much about Bhishma Panchaka. It's not something that was introduced in any of the temples when I was living in the temples and serving. It's a fast. Apparently, it's an opportunity. There are many opportunities where devotees can make advancement in their progress toward love of God by performing austerities to remember that our material bodies want what they want, but we are different. We're the soul, and we have different needs. And sometimes it's important to perform tapasya, austerities, one of which can be fasting in specified days according to specified regulations, like Janmashtami or Ekadashi. And similarly, there's a fast for Bhishma Panchaka. And it's said that Bhishma fasted for 5 days at some point, but I don't know whether that's in the Mahabharata or in some Puranas. Does anybody know here? I just looked it up quickly Googled it before I came here, and all I found was about the fast, but I didn't find what Bhishma actually did and when. It doesn't make sense to me that it said that he fasted 5 days in order to prepare for leaving his body or something like that. But we know that Bhishma stayed on the battlefield. Bhishma had the blessing that he could, he would leave his body at will, or he wouldn't leave his body when he didn't want to. He couldn't be forced to leave his body. So even though in the battle of Kurukshetra, he was just riddled with arrows, I guess the story is that one of the fighters, you may be able to tell it, one of the fighters had previously been, in a previous life, had been, and even in this life had been a woman, but in a previous life, what happened is that Bhishma had gone and rescued 2 sisters, I think, one of them wanted to marry him, but he had taken a vow that he would not ever marry. And she couldn't marry anyone else because she had been kidnapped by some king or something. So he rescued these sisters from the king. So she was very, very angry at Bhishma, and she performed austerities. First of all, she tried to get everybody to fight against Bhishma, but she tried to get all the Kshatriya heroes to attack Bhishma, but they wouldn't. He was too strong and he was too great. So then she performed a sacrifice to be able to get revenge against Bhishma. And in her next life, she was born as a woman but turned into a man, right?
Something like that.
She was one of the heroes in the Battle of Kurukshetra. Had actually been first born as a woman and then later became a man. And Bhishma knew about this history. He knew that she had this grudge against him from her previous life, and he knew that she was a woman. So he wouldn't take up arms. He couldn't shoot her. So then during the battle, they put her in front so that Bhishma couldn't shoot in that direction, and that was the only way that Arjuna was able to shoot all the arrows and kill Bhishma. But he wouldn't die because he had this power not to die. So he laid on the battlefield, and you see many times the pictures of him laying there, pierced with arrows, and he waited. And in Bhagavad Gita, there's a discussion. I'll read from Srimad Bhagavatam today about Bhishmadeva and the passing away of Bhishmadeva. Chapter 9 of the first canto is all about the passing away of Bhishmadeva and also the wonderful prayers that Bhishmadeva offers before he passes away in the presence of Krishna. After the battle of Kurukshetra, this is all disclosed in the first canto. The sages at Naimisharanya are eager to hear about the Srimad Bhagavatam and how it was discussed, how it was explained to Maharaj Parikshit by Shukadev Goswami. And they want to hear about Krishna. And Sutta Goswami begins narrating the pastimes of the Srimad Bhagavatam and of the pastimes of Krishna in Srimad Bhagavatam right at the end of the battle of Kurukshetra. Ashwatthama, the son of Drona, had killed the 5 sons of Draupadi. Draupadi had 5 husbands. The 5 Pandavas had to share her. You've probably heard this story that Draupadi was in love with Arjuna. Her father, King Drupada, wanted her to marry Arjuna. But there was an intrigue in the court in Hastinapur, and Duryodhana and company had given the Pandavas, Queen Kunti and her sons, a house, a mansion made out of very flammable lacquer. And the idea is that they would be happy to stay in this house, and then at a given moment it would be burned to the ground and they would all die, perish in the blaze. It would go up like a tinderbox, this place. And Vidura was able to give them some warnings, and they escaped out a secret tunnel. And the person who was supposed to set fire to the place, the caretaker and servant there, had a family that was just seemed like Pandavas. You know, it was a woman and 5 men and, his sons. And so people thought that the Pandavas had died in the fire, but actually they had escaped. And because of politics and because they had tried to kill them, they determined that it was better to remain, unknown that they were alive at that time. They got some advice either from Vidura or Krishna, I don't remember. But that during that time, Draupadi was of marriageable age, and everybody wanted to marry her because she was such a beautiful and wonderful princess, and the most beautiful woman. And Karna wanted to marry her, and all of the princes wanted to marry her. And so King Drupada made a contest. They would have, in those days, among the royal families, they would have these contests. Swayamvara literally means that her own choice, that the girl gets to choose her husband instead of it just being an arranged deal between the kings of different countries and stuff. But she gets to, it's sort of like we have in our culture, we have like Sweet 16 coming out parties and things like that. And the girl would have an opportunity to see many princes, and they would engage in heroic sporting events. Like we remember in medieval England, they would have jousting and things like that. There would be tournaments, and the princess would. And nowadays we have a reality TV show where the bachelorette gives a flower to the one she decides to. So she would give a garland to the boy she decides to select as her husband. But then usually the other boys, they were not as good sports as they are on the bachelorette. They would say, no, it should have been me, and they'd start a fight. And this was in Kshatriya society. This is the way their marriages happened a lot, and they were very martial culture, sort of like sporting, and so they had to be strong to be leaders, So King Drupada arranged a contest. Often at these Swayamvaras there would be a contest, and the princes would come from around, eligible princes, to compete in the contest. And he arranged a contest that only Arjuna could actually accomplish. There was a little target of a small fish, and it was way up in the top part of the rafters of the palace, where it was very, very far away. And he arranged that you had to pierce it with an arrow, but without looking at it. Instead, you had to look in the reflection in a bowl of water and look down and pierce it that way. And then the bowl of water was shaking, so you couldn't see the reflection very clearly. It was it was reflected on the shimmering water in the bowl. So he knew that only Arjuna was a great enough archer to do that. And the terms of the contest were that you had to be a royal prince. Now Karna could actually do it, maybe. He was also a great archer. And he was really of royal heritage. His father was the sun god. In fact, he was the brother of the Pandavas. His mother was Kunti. But it was before Kunti was married. She had been given a blessing that she could call any demigod and have a child by any demigod. And she didn't think it was really true. She was a little girl, and she thought, let me see that. All right, I call the sun god. And the sun god came, and then she was very frightened, like, well, I'm not even married. And she said, but the sun god said, you called me, you have to have a child now. You have to let me be the father of your child. And she said, I'm not married. And he said, don't worry, we can do it, and you'll still be a virgin, and you can still marry. So her first son was Karna, who became later known as Radheya, because he was just like sort of in the Bible, Moses was sent off in the reeds or something. She had to get him adopted and let no one know that she had a child. So she sent him in the river, and she was found by the family of a carpenter and his wife. His wife's name was Radha. And the carpenter's name was, Adhirata, I think. I'm not sure. So for all intents and purposes, people thought that Karna was the son of a Shudra. But actually he had, in fact, when he was born, he had helmet and earrings on, or he had earrings on at least, not helmet maybe. Krishna had helmet and armor, but Karna had armor and earrings on. And this was a sign that he was a great personality and a great warrior. And indeed he was, and he had all those great qualities. And when Dronacharya was teaching all the members of the royal order, the military art, he was liberal enough to accept a student who was apparently the son of a carpenter, but who excelled in these qualities, warrior qualities. So he taught Karna, and Karna was very good, but there was kind of a rivalry between Karna and Arjuna. And on several occasions, this one in particular, the occasion of Draupadi's Swayamvara, people kind of rubbed his lack of royal and noble birth in his face and made him, made an intense grudge. So, basically what happened was that he wanted to compete to shoot the fish target, and Draupadi wanted only Arjuna as her husband. So she said, but the terms of the contest are you have to be the son of a king to compete. And, Karna, who's your parents? You're not the son of a king, so it's not. Actually, she didn't say that. I think her brother said that. But the idea was that he wasn't allowed to participate. She was glad that her brother said that because she only wanted to marry Arjuna. So Arjuna and the Pandavas came there disguised as, what are they disguised as? Brahmins, maybe? How did they? They came in disguise. I know they went to Jarasandha disguised as Brahmins, and then he said, "Okay, what kind of charity do you want?" And they said, "We want to fight you and kill you." He said, "Okay, I'll fight Bhima only, because Krishna I've already beaten, and Arjuna's too small, and so he fought Bhima." That was a different story. But they went there. I think they were disguised as Brahmanas, but he was, for some reason, he was allowed to compete, and of course, Arjuna was able to pierce the fish right in the eye, and then Draupadi chose him, and he rode off with her, and Karna put up a fight, and some other people fought, and Arjuna, by Krishna's grace, was able to defeat all the challengers and take Draupadi back, and it was a great victorious day. And as they were coming back to home, they said, to their mother, "Dear mother, wait till you see what Arjuna has accomplished, what he's obtained." And the Pandavas, they made some vows, and they kept their vows very strictly. And one of their vows was that they would always do exactly as their mother said. Whatever her word was their command, and they all obeyed it. And just so happened that when they came home and it was expressed in this way, "Wait till you see what Arjuna has gained." And Queen Kunti said, "Whatever it is, he must share it equally with all his brothers." And because of their vow, they took this very seriously, and they decided that Queen Draupadi would be married to all 5 of them, which wasn't the custom in Vedic culture. It is the custom in some cultures that is called polyandry. And there's still some places in Polynesia or even in the Himalayas, some places, in different places, where a woman will marry all the brothers in the family. And in this case, they arranged that in order to keep peace in the family and everything like that, Queen Draupadi would stay with one brother per year. She would be the wife of one and then the wife of the other. She was the wife of all 5 of them, but she would stay and live with one of each brother per year. And she had 5 sons, one from each brother. And Ashwatthama had killed those 5 sons unfairly while they were sleeping. It was like a surprise attack at the end of the battle, just when the battle was over. So the Srimad Bhagavatam picks up where the Mahabharata leaves off, and Srila Prabhupada comments that it's because the Bhagavad Gita is in the Mahabharata, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is the postgraduate study of Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is there before the battle, and then after the battle, the Srimad Bhagavatam begins the narration of Krishna and of King Parikshit, who was the heir to after the Pandavas won the throne, then after Krishna departed and the Yadu dynasty departed, Krishna had finished his mission, accomplished his mission for the demigods of relieving the burden of the earth, and then they all went back to their abodes. And the demigods who had come to help him also went back to their celestial stations. And Yudhishthira Maharaj enthroned his grandson, Arjuna's grandson, Subhadra's, Krishna's sister's grandson, King Parikshit, as the emperor, and then they departed also. In their own bodies, the 5 Pandavas and Queen Kunti and Draupadi and Subhadra they didn't leave their bodies. They actually walked off to the north into the mountains and walked into the spiritual world in their own bodies. They had perfectly spiritual bodies. They were able to do that. So anyway, Mayapur Bihari Prabhu, can you bring me First Canto Part 1 from the bookshelf? So anyway, Bhishmadeva. How did I start talking about all these how the disappearance? Bhishmadeva had been pierced with the arrows, and he was... Now, Krishna, Bhagavad Gita Jayanti takes place. That one, I think, because it's chapter 9, I don't think is in this one. That one only goes up to 7. Gita Jayanti, the Battle of Kurukshetra started in the December time frame. Of course, we have the Gita Jayanti comes based on the solar phase. Thank you very much. Based on the lunar phase. So due to the different movements of the sun and the moon, it's not always exactly the same solar day each year. But it's in the winter time, and there's in the month of Magh, and there's 18 days that the battle took place. And then after the battle, Ashvatthama tried to kill King Parikshit and finish out the line of the Pandavas, because there was this war about who would be who would sit on the throne of the empire in Hastinapur, and Ashvatthama was on the side of Duryodhana, and even though that side had lost, Dronacharya's son was a poor loser. In fact, even Duryodhana was not happy with him that he had killed Draupadi's sons while they were sleeping, without giving them an opportunity for a fair fight. And now he tried. Arjuna had arrested him, but shown mercy on him because Draupadi felt that even though he was a horrible criminal offender, that he was the son of Dronacharya and Kripi, the twin sister of Kripacharya, their gurus, and brahmanas, and it wouldn't be appropriate to kill him and cause his own mother to feel the grief that she was feeling that her sons were killed. So Arjuna let him live. He just cut his jewel and his hair from his head and took his fine clothes away and banished him as a banished criminal with no property. And but he should have been grateful that he was allowed to live, but he tried one more time to destroy the last male heir of the dynasty, and sent a Brahmastra to kill King Parikshit, who was still a child in the womb of Uttara. And Krishna protected King Parikshit. And so Parikshit had seen Krishna, even though I don't think he saw him after he was born, but he had seen Krishna directly in the womb before he was born. So then the Pandavas performed rituals for they offered water to those who had died on the battlefield. They went to the Ganges and they performed funeral services because everybody had died, their whole family members. And Maharaj Yudhishthira was very, very contrite that so much killing had done in order to establish him as king. Of course, it was Krishna's desire that it be that way, and there was no reason for him to feel guilty. But as a saintly person, he felt that he needed to atone for those sins. And Krishna consoled him philosophically. And then Krishna brought him back out to the battlefield of Kurukshetra to see Bhishmadeva. And Bhishmadeva was lying there, waiting to leave his body. He wanted to leave his body, Hare Krishna. He wanted to leave his body at an appropriate time. So in Bhagavad Gita, it's discussed in the 8th chapter that there are auspicious times to leave one's body, and that yogis have the power to select the time when they depart, and that if they select the correct time, the auspicious time, they can actually go to the spiritual world and never return to the material world. But if they depart at the wrong time, then they enjoy long life in the heavenly planets, and then they have to return to earth, where they become attracted to yogic principles, and they continue to make spiritual advancement as yogis. Or if they only were sort of practiced yoga for a short time and were not that advanced, they might take birth in the family of a wealthy person or a Brahminical pure family, so that they have an opportunity to take up yoga. But if they had practiced for a long time, then they would take birth in the family of yogis or devotees, and from the very beginning of their lives, Srila Prabhupada points out in the purport in Bhagavad Gita that he himself was able to take birth in a family of pure devotees, as was his spiritual master Bhaktisiddhanta, who took birth in the home of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So the yogis could choose the time of their departure, and pure devotees don't have to. They can be more. They rely on Krishna to make the proper arrangement for them, but yogis have to choose the time of their departure, and there's different influences. So Krishna mentions the smoke and the like those who depart during the fire and the light and the and the 6 months when the sun is traveling in the north. These are the auspicious times. There's different demigods that control different auspicious things, and Krishna describes them. So Bhishma actually waited until after the solstice. So I don't know when these 5 days that he fasted, I don't know, but it's at the end of Kartik, so it's not after the solstice. So this is not the actual time that Bhishma departed, but he fasted for 5 days. Does Mayapur Bihar, do you know what Bhishma Panchaka is?
I'm not sure why.
So there's 5 days that he fasted in preparation for departing his body, and these are recommended in Gaudiya Vaishnava scriptures like Hari Bhakti Vilas, that how devotees can observe fasting for these days in order to help them achieve love of God. Devotees don't fast for any other purpose, just like sometimes it's become fashionable now for people to fast for political purposes, to bring about the independence of their country or even better treatment of prisoners. We often have, hunger strikes and things like that. But actually fasting is a prescribed Vedic method for purification, but it should be done not for its tapasya. And Krishna describes in the 17th chapter that tapasya in the mode of goodness has to be done without any desire for some personal, reward, but for purification of one's existence. And particularly, all such practices of charity and austerity and sacrifice should be done for the sake of pleasing Krishna, for the Supreme, with the words Om Tat Sat. Krishna describes that. So even more than just being in the mode of goodness, they should be done as devotional service. And similarly, austerities can be done as devotional service. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the holy days like Janmashtami and Ekadashi are the mothers of devotion for the devotees who follow them. And similarly, in Kartik, people take different vows, and in the last 5 days of Kartik, people take a vow of fasting, which is a kind of way to remember that we're not these bodies, to help us control our senses, to do something for the sake of, to accomplish anything in the world, you have to do austerity, actually. It's an interesting thing. If somebody wants to build a big skyscraper, he has to go through a lot of trouble to do it. And to get that determination and that concentration and everything, he has to be willing to undergo all kinds of difficulties and not be deterred. And so we see, just like the example of the story of the woman who wanted revenge against Bhishma, that she went and performed austerities, fasting. You're looking up Bhishma Panchaka?
Nothing I could find.
You couldn't find it, yeah. I Googled it this morning. I didn't have much time because I had to come here, and I quickly Googled it. And I saw a lot of things about the fast and how to perform the fast. And I saw that Bhishma had fasted for 5 days in preparation for, or in order to quit his body or something. But it didn't explain when or where. It must be in some Purana, or maybe it's in Mahabharata. I don't know of it. But people can fast to accomplish something, and demons fast and undergo austerities in order to accomplish foolish things. In the mode of passion and the mode of ignorance, people perform austerities in order to accomplish some mundane objectives, and especially in the mode of ignorance, people do very foolish things, like Srila Prabhupada says that Hiranyakashipu performed great austerities because he wanted to kill Krishna. It's a very stupid, irrational, foolish, and absolutely wrong direction things. But devotees should fast in order to please Krishna, in order to obtain determination for acts of self-realization, for overcoming material attachment and inability to control our senses, and to purify ourselves. Of course, the best way to purify and clear our minds and hearts from all the accumulated dust is by Harinam Sankirtan and remembering Krishna. Chanting, chanting, remembering Krishna. I wasn't able to go on Harinam last night. Who here went on Harinam? None of the people here went. Those who went, they're probably tired and they didn't come in the morning. But I had to go to court early in the morning. I had to prepare a motion and everything, so I woke up at like 3 in the morning and finished up all my declaration of my motion and went to court. And it's a good thing I did, because I told the judge at the hearing, I have a motion, it's in my briefcase, I'm ready to file it, because the judge wanted to see that I had. And he said, all right, let me see it. He was checking to see if I really did, so I gave it to him. He didn't really read it, he just wanted to make sure I wasn't lying. So anyway, King Yudhishthira came out to see Bhishmadeva, and Bhishmadeva instructed him about the principles of religion and how to properly administer the state government, because Bhishmadeva was now the emperor of the world. And Bhishmadeva was Yudhishthira was now the emperor of the world, and Bhishmadeva was, they call him the grandfather. He was granduncle, really, and sort of the patriarch of the family, although he had never had any children himself. So in English we wouldn't call it grandfather, but in Vedic culture, because he was the brother of the grandfather, he was also a grandfather. And because Yudhishthira was and Bhishmadeva was a Mahajan. He was one of the 12 authorities about devotional service and religion. Lord Yamaraj, Prahlad, Janaka, Narada, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Bali Maharaj, the Danava. Yamaraj was the first one I mentioned, right? So there's a verse in the 6th canto. Swayambhu Narada Shambhu, Kapila, Manu, Kumara. So the 4 Kumaras, Kapila and Manu, Janaka, Bhishma, Prahlad, Huh? Ambarish, no. Not of these 12. So, Kapila, Komara, Kapilo, Manu, Prahlada and Bali, and Janaka, and Vyasaki, Shukadeva Goswami. That's the 12th one. So, Bhishma was one of these great authorities, and he gave instructions. And in the Mahabharata, those instructions are very extensive. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's only a matter of, Sutta Goswami says 3 or 4 verses about how Bhishma instructed Yudhishthira Maharaj and all these things. But it's a very, very important part of the Mahabharata where Bhishma gives long instructions about how human society is supposed to be governed in order for people to make spiritual advancement and for there to be peace and prosperity and harmony and so forth, in accordance with the laws of nature and of nature's God, as they say in the Declaration of Independence, I think. And Thomas Jefferson says that according to the laws of nature and of nature's God, something. So he had that idea. Microphone.
Why Bhishma chose to stay for stay on a bed, he could leave the body when Arjuna shoot him. Was it he was looking for the time you mentioned, that means a particular time you leave the body, you leave, or he just want to watch the complete war, I think.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what he was thinking, but we know that he waited until the sun began its course in the north, but we also know that he was able to see Maharaj Yudhishthira installed on the throne, which made him very happy, and he was able to leave his body in the presence of Krishna, which was his great desire. And he remembered Krishna, and Krishna came there in a four-armed form and stood in front of him while he left his body. And he offered prayers about how he was very, very pleased with that. In fact, Srila Prabhupada entitles this chapter, it says, the passing away of Bhishmadeva, but if you look in at the beginning of the chapter, the whole title, it says on the top of every page when it gives the chapter, it says the passing away of Bhishmadeva. But if you look at the actual title chapter, it's longer. It's the passing away of Bhishmadeva in the presence of Lord Krishna. So Bhishmadeva achieved his desire that Krishna be personally present before him when he passed away. And he talks in his prayers before he passes away. He talks about seeing Krishna, and I think I'll read that verse today. During the battle of Kurukshetra, there were, trying to remember the exact story, but at some, the thing is that Bhishma was strong enough to kill all the 5 Pandavas. And Duryodhana, even in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Duryodhana is kind of chiding Bhishma. Duryodhana is an expert politician, and he can speak very cleverly with different meanings and things. And you can see this in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. Dhritarashtra asks Sanjaya what's happening on the battlefield, and Sanjaya says, "Well, Duryodhana, the king, is speaking to." The different generals in this way, and he's speaking to Bhishma, and he knows that he knows that Bhishma loves the Pandavas, but this is politics, this is war, and they're fighting, and he wants Bhishma to kill the Pandavas, and throughout the battle he's kind of chiding Bhishma, that why don't you kill the Pandavas already? Why don't, you're not really trying. And he had a weapon. He had a special weapon that he could kill the Pandavas with. And he said, okay, I'll use that weapon or something. I'm trying to remember. My memory is not good. I apologize. But Duryodhana said, all right, well, let me keep it for safekeeping.
The 5 arrows.
The 5 arrows. He had 5 arrows, one for each Pandava. And Duryodhana was keeping it for safekeeping. And then Arjuna came and met Duryodhana and satisfied him in some way. And Duryodhana said, I'll give you anything you want. And Arjuna said, give me those 5 arrows. So Duryodhana, so he lost that opportunity. But somehow, I don't remember exactly how, but Bhishmadev said, all right, I promise you, tomorrow I will attack Arjuna so hard that Krishna himself will have to protect him or else he'll die. And now Krishna had promised that he would be neutral. He didn't take a side in the fight. But Balaram also was neutral. Balaram was partial to Duryodhana, believe it or not. Balaram had taught Duryodhana the art of fighting with the club, and so there was some affection there. But Balaram was neutral, and he went on pilgrimage to avoid the fight. Vidura had also gone on pilgrimage after being insulted by Duryodhana. That's described in the third canto of Bhagavatam. In Krishna's neutrality, he said, I will stay on one side as a consultant only. I won't fight. I'll be a non-combatant because I'm so strong. But I'll give my army to the other side, and that way I'll be neutral. One side can have my army, and one side can have my presence as a non-fighter, but I can just be there as an advisor. And he said that whoever saw him first in the morning would get to choose. It was like the coin toss, who gets to see who Krishna will see first. So both Duryodhana and Arjuna wanted to see Krishna first in the morning so they could get to choose. And Duryodhana ran up to Krishna's head so that Krishna would see him first, but Arjuna stayed at Krishna's feet because Arjuna is a devotee. And when Krishna opened his eyes, he looked down towards his feet and he saw Arjuna. And he said, okay, you get to choose. And Arjuna said, I will take you. I want your presence. Your army can go to the other side, but I will have you on my side. And Duryodhana said, that's what I wanted to do too. He was happy because he would have taken the army. So he was happy that Arjuna had chosen that way. And Krishna agreed to be the chariot driver for Arjuna. But Krishna was sworn that he himself wouldn't take up arms. But Bhishma said, I'm going to fight Arjuna so hard that unless Krishna takes up arms, he will die. So let's read this verse. Is verse 37. It just happens to be the one that I opened to in chapter 9. And I don't think you have it in your... those of you who have the Srimad Bhagavatam on your smartphones can look it up. 1937. Oh, it'll be on the screen also if you turn your chairs around so we can recite. Chapter 9, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 37. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Svanigamam. We'll just do the word for words first while he gets that up. Oh, it's up now already. Can you read it? I couldn't see it. It's very... Let me put on my glasses. That's 36. Go to the next verse. This is the right chapter, but it's... Yeah.
37.
We want 37, yeah. There you go. There you go. Got it. Svanigamam. Own truthfulness. Apahaya. For nullifying. Mat pratigyam. My own promise. Ritam. Factual. Adhi. More. Kartum. For doing it. Avaplutaha, getting down. Rathastha, from the chariot. Drita, taking up. Ratha, chariot. Charanaha, wheel. Abhyayat, went hurriedly. Chaladguhu, trampling the earth. Harihi, lion. Eva, like. Hantum, to kill. Ibham, elephant. Gata, leaving aside. Uttariyaha, covering cloth. So the verse is up on the screen back there for those who want to follow along. Swanigamam apahaya mat pratigyam ritam adhikartum avapluto ratastaha dritarata charano yach chaladgur haririvahantum ibhang katotariya. Swanigamam apahaya mat pratigyam ritam adhikartum avapluto ratastaha dritarata charano bhyayach chaladgur haririvahantum ibhangatotariyaha. Swanigamam apahaya mat pratigyam vritam adhikartum avapluto ratastaha dritarata charano bhyayach chaladgur haririvahantum ibham gotatriya. Would anyone else like to? Swanigamam apahaya mat pratignyam ritam adhikartum avlapluto rathastaha dritarata charano bhyayach chaladgur
ibam gatoraya
Harir ivahantum ibham gatotariyaha. Translation: fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. Please repeat. Fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly. Just as a lion goes to kill an elephant, he even dropped his outer garment on the way. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The battle of Kurukshetra was fought on military principles, but at the same time in a sporting spirit like a friend's fight with another friend. Duryodhana criticized Bhishmadev, alleging that he was reluctant to kill Arjuna because of paternal affection. A Kshatriya cannot tolerate insults on the principle of fighting. Bhishmadev therefore promised that the next day he would kill all 5 Pandavas with special weapons made for the purpose. Duryodhana was satisfied, and he kept the arrows with him to be delivered the next day during the fight. By tricks, Arjuna took the arrows from Duryodhana And Bhishmadeva could understand that this was the trick of Lord Krishna. So he took a vow that the next day Krishna would have to take up weapons himself, otherwise his friend Arjuna would die. So this was Bhishmadeva had understood that this was Krishna. When he found out that Arjuna had tricked Duryodhana into giving up the 5 arrows, the special weapons that Bhishmadeva had for killing the Pandavas, he could understand, oh, Krishna did this. Krishna was doing all kinds of things. Same thing when Gandhari was very, very powerful. When she was a young girl and she was married to Dhritarashtra, she heard that her husband was blind, completely blind, couldn't see anything. So she decided, as an austerity of her own, to blindfold herself and to keep herself blindfolded all her life, so that she would always be following her husband and not superior to him. So this was a very great austerity. And because she was a mystic in this way and austere in this way, she had great powers. And so before the battle of Kurukshetra, she decided to protect her son Duryodhana. And she told him, when you come to see me tomorrow in the morning, come without any clothes on. His mother is telling him, come to me without any clothes on. Come naked to see me. So he said, okay, mother, I'll do what you request. So he was coming there, and somehow or another Krishna met him in the hall of the palace. And he said, why are you going naked in the palace like this? And he said, my mother requested me to come naked. And Krishna said, well, at least you should wear a little gamsha or something, because that's indecent to go naked. So Duryodhana said, yes, you're right. And he put on a gamsha. But Gandhari's plan was that where she took off her blindfold, and when she saw him, she was going to make him invincible, his body invincible by her vision. Sort of like in the Greek mythology, they have the hero Achilles. His mother was a demigoddess, and she dipped him in a river to make him invincible. But she held him by his ankle, and so he had this Achilles heel. He had this weakness that he could be killed by being shot in the ankle, because that's where he wasn't dipped in the I think it was the Styx. I don't remember what special river he was dipped in. But Duryodhana, he became invincible, like his body became like iron everywhere that Gandhari saw his skin. But because Krishna had made him wear a cloth around his hips, he remained vulnerable at the hips. So when he was fighting with Bhima with clubs for so long, they had a duel, Krishna instructed Bhima to break his hips, which is actually against the rule of proper combat. You weren't supposed to strike below the waist, and that's how Bhima killed him.
But I was hearing one explanation. He told actually Bhima was not killed. Arjuna, the Duryodhana was jumping. So when Bhishma hit, it hit in his knees because of him. He was not
he wasn't intentionally doing
not intentionally doing.
Okay. I always heard that Krishna had instructed him, but when Gandhari heard, she saw, I told you to come naked, why are you wearing a gamsha? Then Duryodhana said, well, Krishna told me, at least I should wear a gamsha. Then Gandhari knew, she knew that Krishna is God, and she knew that, God has his own, God has his own plan. And so Bhishmadeva also, he knew Krishna is God, and he knew Krishna could be tricky. And he was going, the outcome, with Krishna on the other side, the outcome was never in doubt. Wherever there's Krishna, there's victory. That's a fact. For those who are devotees, they understand this, that because Krishna was on the side of Maharaj Yudhishthira and Arjuna, even having great powerful personalities like Bhishma on the other side, were not going to affect who would be the victor in the war. As it says in the last verse of Bhagavad Gita, wherever there's Krishna and Arjuna, there is victory and morality and extraordinary power, without a doubt. So Bhishma knew that when he went to get the 5 arrows from Duryodhana, and Duryodhana said, "Oh, Arjuna took them by trick. Arjuna begged them from me. I had to give them because I made a promise." Then Bhishma understood, this was Krishna's doing. And he said, "All right, tomorrow I'm going to fight so hard that I'll kill Arjuna unless Krishna breaks his own promise." In the next day's fighting, Bhishmadeva fought so violently that both Arjuna and Krishna were in trouble. Arjuna was almost defeated. The situation was so tense that he was about to be killed by Bhishmadeva the very next moment. At that time, Krishna wanted to please his devotee Bhishma by keeping Bhishma's promise, which was more important than his own. Seemingly, he broke his own promise. He promised before the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra that he would remain without weapons and would not use his strength for either of the parties. But to protect Arjuna, he got down from the chariot, took up the wheel of the chariot, and hurriedly rushed at Bhishmadeva in an angry mood as a lion goes to kill an elephant. So Krishna has a wheel as his weapon, his Sudarshan Chakra. It's a fiery wheel, a disc that can burn anyone and cut off people's heads. It's a very powerful disc. But here Krishna picked up a kind of a low-tech chakra, a wheel of a chariot. He picked it up to strike, like he was going to club Bhishma with the wooden chariot wheel. But this is Krishna. He holds a wheel in his hand. He's the Chakrapani, So in this case, Ratangapani, the carrier of the chariot wheel. Or I like in the Sanskrit here, they basically say the Rata Charana. Charanam, of course, means feet, but in this case it's like the foot of the chariot is the wheel, He dropped his covering cloth on the way, and out of great anger he did not know that he had dropped it. Bhishmadeva at once gave up his weapons and stood to be killed by Krishna, his beloved Lord. The fighting of the day was thus ended at that very moment, and Arjuna was saved. Of course, it's in those days, at least at that part of the war, I don't remember which day it was specifically, but they were fighting according to these principles that they would only fight in the daylight. And when the sun set, someone would blow a conch shell, and that would be an end to the day's hostilities. Like boxers, when the bell rings, they have to go back to their corners. And then at nighttime, they can be friends with each other. They'll kill you tomorrow, we'll see. But later on in the battle, they began to fight at nighttime too. They broke the rules, and they started fighting at nighttime. Then Bhima, he had one son. When they were in exile, he killed a Rakshasa, Hidimba, and that Rakshasa's sister became in love with Bhima and proposed marriage to him. And so Bhima married this Rakshasi woman, and they had a son named Gatotkacha. And because he was half Rakshasa, he had these special mystic powers. He was a very powerful warrior. But as a Rakshasa, his powers was even greater at night. So when they started fighting at night, then Gatotkacha came to the side of the Pandavas and his father Bhima, and he could fight like crazy at night, and he was destroying them, completely destroying them. So then they had to use a special Shakti weapon. That Karna had a special weapon to kill Arjuna too. There were these different weapons. Karna had been awarded a weapon by a demigod. By who? I don't remember whether it was Agni or Surya or someone. Surya was his father, but he had been awarded a special weapon called Shakti, maybe by Lord Shiva. He pleased different demigods. In the same way Arjuna had done so, pleasing different demigods and being given different weapons. So he had this special weapon, but he was meant for Arjuna, but he had to use it to kill Bhima's son at nighttime. But at this point in the battle, they were stopping for the night. So Bhishma had vowed that he would make Krishna join the combat that day by fighting Arjuna so ferociously. But, you're in a battle with the different chariots and elephants and formations and cavalry and things. And it took him all day to get to that part and get into combat with Arjuna where he could really, where he could really kill Arjuna. He was on the verge of killing Arjuna. And that was right at the end of the day's fighting. So just before he would actually have killed Arjuna, then Krishna had to get down from the chariot and run attacking him. And Arjuna and Bhishma couldn't resist the power of Krishna, and he was ready to be killed by Krishna. But then the conch shell blew, the fighting was over, saved by the bell. Krishna didn't kill Bhishma, he just ran at him as if to kill him. Of course, there was no possibility of Arjuna's death because the Lord himself was on the chariot. But because Bhishmadeva wanted to see Lord Krishna take up some weapon to save his friend, the Lord created the situation, making Arjuna's death imminent. He stood before Bhishmadeva to show him that his promise was fulfilled and that he had taken up the wheel. That is, that Bhishma's promise was fulfilled and that Krishna had taken up the wheel. So Bhishma had promised that Krishna would take up weapons. Krishna didn't exactly take up a weapon because he took up a chariot wheel. It wasn't like a bow and arrow or something, or a mace or a sword. But Bhishma's promise was filled. So Krishna fulfills the promise of his own devotee, even at the risk of breaking his own promise. This is Krishna's character. He puts the interest of his devotees and the desires of his pure devotees above his own. And therefore, when Krishna says to Arjuna, "Declare it boldly, my devotee never perishes," the commentators have taught us that if Krishna had promised himself, someone might think, "Oh, but you sometimes break your promises, Krishna. You're a tricky person." But if his devotee promises, if he gets Arjuna to declare it, Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashti, then everyone will know that cannot fail because it's the promise of his devotee. So Krishna ran at Bhishmadeva and he dropped his outer cloth. Devotees appreciate the beauty of Krishna's form. And in particular, Bhishma loved Krishna in a mood of chivalry. He actually, in his other prayers, he talks about how seeing that Krishna's bluish form was turned red by blood. There were wounds on Krishna's body as Krishna was running towards him, in the course of the fight. And this made this whole beautiful scene that Bhishma was very, very happy to behold. That may be that's in the very next verse. Shita vishikya hato vishirna dangshaha shataja paripluta atatayano me prasabham abhisasara madhartam sabhavatu me bhagavan gatir mukundaha. May he, Lord Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield he charged me, as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered, and his body was smeared with blood due to the wounds. Bhishma is remembering this beautiful, something that it may sound to us that this is something ghastly, but there's beauty in it when it's related to Krishna. And I'll read the purport. The dealings of Lord Krishna and Bhishmadeva on the battlefield of Kurukshetra are interesting because the activities of Lord Sri Krishna appeared to be partial to Arjuna and at enmity with Bhishmadeva. But factually, all this was especially meant to show special favor to Bhishmadeva, a great devotee of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada, in the first canto, Srila Prabhupada does this a lot. He takes a sentence and he italicizes it for emphasis. The next sentence, this sentence that I'm going to read is in italics. The astounding feature of such dealings is that a devotee can please the Lord by playing the part of an enemy. That's in italics. The astounding feature of such dealings is that a devotee can please the Lord by playing the part of an enemy. The Lord, being absolute, can accept service from his pure devotee even in the garb of an enemy. The Supreme Lord cannot have any enemy, nor can a so-called enemy harm him because he is ajita or unconquerable. But still he takes pleasure when his pure devotee beats him like an enemy or rebukes him from a superior position, although no one can be superior to the Lord. These are some of the transcendental, reciprocatory dealings of the devotee with the Lord. And those who have no information of pure devotional service cannot penetrate into the mystery of such dealings. Bhishmadeva played the part of a valiant warrior, and he purposely pierced the body of the Lord, so that to common eyes it would appear that the Lord was wounded. But factually, all this was to bewilder the non-devotees. The all-spiritual body cannot be wounded, and a devotee cannot become the enemy of the Lord. Had it been so, Bhishmadeva would not have desired to have the very same Lord as the ultimate destination of his life. In this same prayer, he's praying that I want the Lord to be my ultimate destination. Had Bhishmadeva been an enemy of the Lord, Lord Krishna could have annihilated him without even moving. Actually, Krishna could have destroyed the whole other side, the battle of Kurukshetra, just by snapping his fingers, or not even snapping his fingers. All right, they're destroyed. But he wanted, it's Leela, he wanted Arjuna to be, to fight and be glorious and achieve the victory, and achieve the glorious victory. And Arjuna was never resentful of that. Why don't you just kill him? You know, sometimes people get mad, you know, oh, my car didn't start this morning. Why did God do this to me? You know, or something. But the devotee's mood is not like that. He understands that God is in control of everything, and everything's going in accordance with his will, and our part is to act. I mean, Arjuna's own son, Abhimanyu, was unfairly surrounded in the war and killed by like 7 Maharathas who, you know, in an unchivalrous way, killed him. Arjuna didn't resent. Why, Krishna, why did you let that happen? You could have killed everybody yourself. And similarly, someone was asking, you know, the other day on the internet, I was talking, someone was, why do we have to work so hard to preach in the Sankirtan movement? You know, why doesn't Krishna just stay here on earth with the Yadu dynasty and make everything like a Vaikuntha planet? But no, we have something to do. You know, yeah, of course he could do that, but that would take our service away. He wants us to be glorified, that we're, you know, that it's the destiny, it's predestined. Also, I just read a purport where Prabhupada said that someone may argue Kali Yuga is predestined, people are sinful in this age, so why should we fight it? Why not just, you know, Prabhupada says this is the argument of a lazy and foolish person. You know, why should we tell people, don't be sinful? You know, why not just say, oh, they're going to be sinful anyway, I'm going to just, you know, go back to bed. But no, we have we have our service to do. This is the greatest gift, that we've been given service. Just like Arjuna was given this battle to fight in, even though it was very difficult for him, and he had to overcome obstacles and perform heroic feats. And similarly, we have this battle to make the world Krishna conscious, to spread this Sankirtan movement, the chanting of Hare Krishna, the reading of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, to put Bhagavad Gita in every motel room in the world, like the Gideon's Bibles. And these are our missions, our things that we have to tax our brain, our intelligence, use that. We've got these human bodies, and they're meant for being used in Krishna's service in this way, in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement service. And Srila Prabhupada says, without the hard struggle, there is no possibility of a glorious victory. So we should feel that way, that we have a hard struggle. We're up against a misdirected civilization, that people are blind. You know, they ought to, when you see a book distributor on the street, would you like to take this Bhagavad Gita? They ought to say, Bhagavad Gita, I've heard of Bhagavad Gita. It's a very famous book, and I really want to know what's in it. And it's look at that book. It seems to be effulgent and shining from your book bag. There's light coming out of your, you know. Please let me have it. What can I give you in exchange for it? But most people think, I don't have time, I'm going to a restaurant to eat, lobsters and going to some, horror movie with my family or something like that. And so they're not, so this is our challenge. We have to somehow or another, no, please, I know you're busy, but please just take some time to take this book. It's very wonderful. And if you like, you can give us some contribution, sufficient, suitable contribution, because this is our mission. This is our duty to become clever enough to distribute. How many thousands we're doing? 19,000. 19,065, as in 1965 Latham Street. Bhishmadev played the part of a valiant warrior, and he purposely pierced the body of the Lord so that to common eyes it appeared that the Lord was wounded. I already read this, but we'll read it twice. But factually, this was to bewilder the non-devotees. The all-spiritual body cannot be wounded, and a devotee cannot become the enemy of the Lord. Had it been so, Bhishmadev would not have desired to have the very same Lord as the ultimate destination of his life. Had Bhishmadev been the enemy of the Lord, Lord Krishna could have annihilated him without even moving. There was no need to come before Bhishmadev with blood and wounds. But he did so because the warrior devotee wanted to see the transcendental beauty of the Lord decorated with wounds created by a pure devotee. This is the way of exchanging transcendental rasa, or relations between the Lord and the servitor. By such dealings, both the Lord and the devotee become glorified in their respective positions. The Lord was so angry that Arjuna checked him when he was moving towards Bhishmadev. But in spite of Arjuna's checking, he proceeded towards Bhishmadev as a lover goes to a lover, without caring for hindrances. Apparently, his great determination was to kill Bhishmadev, but factually it was to please him as a great devotee of the Lord. The Lord is undoubtedly the deliverer of all conditioned souls. The impersonalists desire salvation from him, and he always awards them according to their aspiration. But here, Bhishmadev aspires to see the Lord in his personal feature. All pure devotees aspire for this. And then the next verse, I'll just read it without the Sanskrit or the purport. At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left hand, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. The Bhagavad Gita, not that one, but the previous edition has a picture of Krishna riding the chariot, holding a whip in his hand, and a bridle rope in a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in the left. Must be from this description of Bhishmadev. The older Bhagavad Gita, there was a beautiful picture on the front in the old Macmillan Bhagavad Gita of Krishna holding a conch shell and blessing everyone. It was a very beautiful picture. So Bhishmadev desired at the end of his life to have his concentration on Krishna, and he was very happy that Krishna was presently standing in front of him so that he could now see Krishna and just absorb his attention in Krishna and drink him in with his eyes as he left his body. And this pastime of Bhishma wanting to see Krishna coming to kill him is a little bit unusual but it's a rasa. It's a rasa of pure devotional service. In the Brahma Samhita we read this morning about how meditators on Krishna, who meditate on him under the sway of wrath, parental affection, natural friendly love, delusion and willing service, and passionate, amorous love. Yang kama krodha. What's the verse? Yang kama krodha sahaja. Yang krodha kama sahaja pranayati bhiti, fear. Vatsalya, moha guru gaurava sevya bhavahi sanchintya tasya sadrishing tanamapurete govindam adipurusham tamahang bhajami. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, the meditators of whom, by meditating upon him under the sway of wrath, amorous passion, natural friendly love, fear, parental affection, delusion, reverence, and willing service, attain to bodily forms befitting the nature of their contemplation. So Krishna is all absolute, and he rewards as they surrender to him. He rewards them accordingly. And the atheists sometimes meditate on him in fear or in anger. Shishupal was always angry at Krishna. Kamsa was always afraid of Krishna, that he had been predicted that Krishna would come and kill him. And they get rewarded with impersonal liberation because their meditation is not favorable. And delusion. So fear, anger, and delusion are three ways of meditating. And in the purport of that verse in the Brahma Samhita, Bhaktisiddhanta says that the Panditas of the pantheistic school meditate on Krishna under this way of delusion, and they may achieve impersonal liberation. But because their meditation is not favorable, like devotees, the other five are described are the five primary rasas. Young kama, like the gopis, krodha, sahaja, like the cowherd boys, or like Arjuna. Young kama, krodha, sahaja, pranayati, piti, vatsalya, like the Mother Yashoda. Piti is fear, like Kamsa. Moha, delusion, like the pantheists. Guru Gaurava, reverence. So reverence is like Prahlad Maharaj, like the Shanta Rasa. I adore the Lord. You can, even in Lord Brahma's prayers, I adore Govinda, the primeval Lord. You're having the darshan of him, but without an active principle of a relationship. Lakshmi is reverence, but she's also massaging his legs in service. Yeah. Sevya bhavahi, and with the attitude of willing service. So servants, like Krishna has different servants, like Daruka, who drives his chariot for him, and so forth. So these Bhishmadeva had a mood of chivalrous humor mixed with the service. And Krishna, Srila Prabhupada is saying in this purport that Krishna likes to have a loving relationship where somebody takes themselves superior to him. He doesn't only relish people all serving him and making him the king and the boss of everyone else, but he actually likes it when a devotee challenges him. And like Mother Yashoda wants to chastise him, Radharani wants to rebuke him, and in this case Bhishmadeva was angry. Actually, Bhishmadeva was, he understood, he couldn't be angry at Krishna, but he understood that Krishna had tricked Duryodhana to give Arjuna these 5 arrows. And then he said, all right, that's it. I'm going to make Krishna pick up his own weapons tomorrow. He'd break his own promise, and he's going to fight me. And Bhishma he appreciated the... let me just see the time. We have plenty of time. He appreciated the vision of Krishna running at him. And it's significant that Krishna had dropped his outer covering cloth, and Bhishma got to see his strong shoulders and his chest and the wounds and the blood oozing on his body, the colors of it and stuff. It was very beautiful to him. He wanted to see this beauty, the beauty of Krishna's form. We want to see beautiful things with our eyes, but there's nothing more beautiful than the form of Krishna. People want to see a beautiful movie star or something like that, and everybody makes posters, pin-up girls or whatever. They want to see something beautiful, or beautiful landscape and mountains and sunsets and things, and we see, the beauty, the magnificent beauty. But all these are just a spark of Krishna's splendor. Anything that's beautiful or opulent or powerful in the world is just a little, it's all coming from Krishna's glory. And Krishna's own body is much more beautiful than any other vision or any other sight. And here Bhishma, in that mood of a warrior, chivalrous mood of a warrior, he wanted to see the form of Krishna running at him in anger, ready to kill him. And this, it's hard for us to understand, because we think of, if you're fighting with somebody, that you're an enemy. But actually he's a pure devotee of Krishna. He's just playing the role of being on the other side. And remember, this combat was something that people respect, just like honor in when noble warriors have to surrender, and one of them hands over his sword to the other one and says, you beat me. If you've ever, I used to read the books about the Napoleonic wars and the British sea captains, and they would be fighting against the French sea captains and so forth. And then there would be a scene where you would beat the other one and make them surrender, and then eventually there would be a little ceremony where the captain would come and hand over his sword, and it was like, I respect you. You've bested me in the in the sport, really, of warfare. And there was a sort of affection and honor there, just like in sports. They interview the players after the game, and they say, we played a good game, but the quarterback on the other side, this was too good, this time, or something like that. So that's that kind of honor and chivalry was there in the warfare in those times. They would stop fighting at night, or they would fight in a battlefield. They wouldn't go disturb. It wasn't like Vikings coming and pillaging some town and taking all the, taking the people away, making them slaves, raping all the women and stealing all the, and burning the town, burning the village to the ground and taking all the booty away and stuff like that. This was not that kind of barbarian looting raids and things like that. This was a very high-level civilized warfare in which, the people would decide who would become the emperor, who would become the rulers of the world, and sometimes there would be challenges, and they would prove their authority and their God-anointed, power to be the rulers by having wars that would take place according to rules of combat. No nuclear weapons were dropped on whole cities and melted everybody and left radiation fallout on everyone. Or even, like the German Blitz, they were just flying over London and dropping bombs in the city, just to terrorize the population, dropping bombs on people's houses or, wherever they landed. Now they have the so-called smart bombs, and they can be guided, and they have drones that are supposed to be able to attack. But in fact, they're killing innocent people. They're trying to assassinate specific people by dropping bombs from the sky, but it's not working. They're actually just killing people, and because they're doing it in countries that we're not at war with. It becomes a very serious ethical problem that the American drones, and now they're having drones fly over our whole country and take pictures of everyone and see where everything's going on. And it's kind of shocking because, anyway, I don't want to talk about politics, but in those days the kings were representatives of God, and so their authority was not such a frightening thing. And they didn't have to, in the United States, we're concerned with liberty and justice for all, because we don't want to be under the boot of some demon who just, makes us do things without considering what's in our best interest. But the Vedic system is that there are philosopher kings, Rajarshis, who are saintly people, and even they take advice from their spiritual masters, from the learned brahmanas, and they know what's best for the whole society, and they administer everything so that everyone can be peaceful and happy and make spiritual advancement. And they perform great sacrifices. They engage in this way. They engage the energy of the people and direct everyone towards serving God. And these sacrifices are like gigantic spectacles. Like now we have, big sporting events like the Olympics or something like that. And, we need something for entertainment. And we have, sports and arena concerts, and we have award ceremonies with, the Oscars and things, and people put on their best clothes and they go. But these, in the ancient Vedic system, they would have these sacrifices that would be performed by the kings and spend enormous amount of money for the pleasure of God and distribute the prasadam very lavishly, so that it would be a way of making sure that everybody had enough wealth, that not just food, but also cloth and animals, cows and things like that, and what people needed so that nobody would be poor. It would be a way of redistributing wealth in accordance with the rules and regulations of properly carrying out sacrifices. So everybody would be very, very happy with these gigantic state sacrifices, which would bring. They would satisfy all the demigods and Krishna, and would bring, the proper, like nowadays people are concerned about global warming, climate change. It's, we're kind of, we think we're so, able to control our environment now with science and so forth. But as Srila Prabhupada says, we're all struggling to exploit nature, but we're becoming more and more entangled in her complexities. And, we need good weather, proper regulated rainfall. The rain is, the snow is supposed to fall in one season, and it's supposed to be warm in another season, so that the flowers will come out at the right time and the fruits will come out at the right time. And now we're very vulnerable. The bees are dying. Why are the bees dying? Nobody knows. They're trying to figure out. But without bees, then fruits won't be pollinated, and we won't be able to get a lot of our. Thank you very much. We won't be able to get a lot of our food. So we need the blessings of the higher powers. We need good climate, and when the demigods are pleased. This is a cycle of sacrifice Krishna describes in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Just like the humans are dependent on the demigods to provide good rain and sun, weather, good fortune, an auspicious atmosphere, nice breezes, fragrant flowers, minerals, jewelry, peace and harmony and prosperity, coming from the controlling of so many demigod forces. The demigods are also, in a way, dependent on human beings on earth, that we're supposed to be pious and religious. When people are sinful, when they're lying and cheating and having illicit sex and intoxication and meat eating and all this stuff, then Mother Earth in the form of a cow becomes very distressed, and she goes and complains. The demigods go to Lord Brahma and they say, what's going to happen? Who's going to help us? The leaders of the human society don't know the actual religious principles, and they're misleading everybody, misguiding everybody. Those who are supposed to be authorities on proper behavior and authorities on also knowledge are actually not qualified to give guidance on what we're supposed to do. And so then Krishna says, I'll come myself, and I want all you to come and join me and assist me in my pastimes, and we're going to go and kill all the demons protect all the devotees and reestablish the principles of Dharma. So the demigods they get sacrifices. They get prasadam from the sacrifices that are performed by humans, and it disturbs them if those sacrifices aren't going on. And in this age, this Kali Yuga, we don't do those big sacrifices like the horse sacrifices and the Ashvamedha and the Rajasuya sacrifice that Yudhishthira Maharaj performed. But we do the Sankirtan Yajna like all the devotees did last night. Charlene, did you go last night to the... No, I didn't. I wasn't able to go either. But I bet Ramananda Saka was there. Yeah, he's definitely would be there. So they go and they chant the holy names of Krishna, and they get other people to chant the holy names of Krishna. And that actually, people may not know it. The people who live in the apartment across the way, they probably don't know that by chanting Hare Krishna, we're actually... The devotees in this Sankirtan movement are doing great benefit to society. We're pleasing Krishna, and all the demigods are automatically pleased, just like when you water the root of a tree, the leaves get nourished. And this worship of Krishna, this chanting of the holy names is very important. And yes, people in other religions are also going to churches and worshiping God and so forth. And that's very important that it's being done, and going to mosques. And it's very important that people reverence or revere God, and particularly in this age, chant His holy names and distribute prasadam and discuss His qualities and pastimes and everything. So this Sankirtan Yajna, this chanting of Hare Krishna, is especially meant for this age as the sacrifice, and it satisfies all the demigods. And the four principles of sinful life are illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and meat eating. And these things disturb the demigods, and they disturb Mother Earth. And so by spreading this chanting of Hare Krishna, and also teaching people to refrain from these four sinful activities, we can actually do great benefit to restore peace and prosperity and natural order on earth. And the bees won't die, and the typhoons won't get too big, and all those other things that people are afraid of happening. Some discussion? We have a mic there. Natalie?
Okay, I had a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So we know that Krishna's body is transcendental, it is Satchit Ananda. So how do we understand that in the previous verse that we read, that there is blood on the body of Krishna, and how do we understand it?
So he's Satchidananda, but he's playing as a human being, and actually these are... Bhishma is seeing it as beautiful, that that he's turning red, that part of him is red, just like his feet, his lotus feet are red. So I guess you'd say, well, he, like in the Ishopanishad, Sri Ishopanishad, it's describing his Satchidananda body, he says it's without veins, So they're trying to describe that it's not like our body, it's not under the control of the material nature. So then you might be surprised, why does he bleed? And it's just, he's actually, when Krishna bleeds, it's beautiful. When we bleed, it's horrible and frightening and stuff like that. And our blood is sticky and icky and moochy. It's contaminating. You can't, if you get blood on something, it's, you can't then use it to worship the Lord. You have to be careful in the kitchen. You can't have a bleeding wound or anything like that because it's very, very contaminated. All these things, earwax and boogers and sweat and things like that, are contaminated with us. But Krishna, his body is completely pure, and even his blood is completely pure. So it's very different from ours. So. Although he's appearing like a human being, and he's appearing to do these things that we do, cry. And one time when he was fighting one demon, it was a Shalva, I think, the demon made a magical form of Vasudeva, like a magician. He made a fake form, and he said, "Krishna, here I have your father," and then he cut off his head and killed him, and then Krishna grieved. So then the authorities, the great devotees, would comment on it. Well, why is Krishna grieving, and how could he have been bewildered? And no, he really wasn't bewildered, but he was pretending. And this is part of his pastimes, like that. He didn't really grieve. He wasn't really taken in by the magic tricks of the demon. But as part of to make the story be interesting to those who hear it and listen to it, he's playing those roles. But when he bleeds, Bhishmadeva wanted to see that. Bhishmadeva wanted to see him in that way. And for Bhishmadeva, it was this very beautiful sight, just like, a lusty man wants to see some beautiful woman half undressed or whatever like that, and it's just, something very attractive to his eye. So to the great devotee, seeing Krishna in that very beautiful form was very completely satisfying to his heart, and Krishna was fulfilling his desire, like that. Anyone else? There's more discussion. I can go on reading about Bhishmadeva. But these are the prayers. The Srimad Bhagavatam is full of these, it tells these different pastimes, and then there's these little set pieces in which some great personality in that circumstance, in that situation, offers prayers or gives instructions, or, and then in those prayers are contained the essence of Vedanta philosophy, the essence of yoga, the essence of, and the essence of Krishna consciousness. And this is one of the things that makes the Srimad Bhagavatam such beautiful scripture. The devotees memorize those prayers, yeah.
Thank you. I have a question, not on the talk, but what you brought up. Where in the Srimad Bhagavatam are the prayers? It's a lot of it is stories, and the other day I was trying to find prayers in it. So where do you find them?
They're in every chapter. Like right now we're reading this part of the Bhagavatam, those two verses that I just read, they were part of what the story is, that Krishna went with Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira was feeling very grief-stricken that everybody had died for his sake. He was feeling like, it's my fault. I'm the most sinful man. All these people died just to make me the king. And he was unconsolable. And Krishna came and spoke philosophy to him, and so did other, Kripacharya, the other gurus and things like that, and other, Vyasadeva. But he still couldn't be consoled. And Krishna took him out, let's go see Bhishmadeva in the battlefield. And Bhishmadeva was very, very happy to see him and was very glad. And Bhishmadeva spoke to him about how you, Pandavas, are actually very pious. And he told him about how to rule the kingdom and so forth. And so that's one set of prayers, maybe these instructions of Bhishmadeva. But then Bhishmadeva prepared to leave his body. And that the part that we're reading right now, the story is that Bhishmadeva is there and the Pandavas are there. Arjuna shoots an arrow that's actually, in the battlefield, people need water. They carry canteens and stuff like that. But it's famous that a lot of people feel very, very thirsty, especially when they're wounded and they're bleeding and they need a lot of water. And so in those days, they had the ability to pierce the aquifer, pierce through the substratum and make springs come up from under the ground, like artesian wells or something. So Arjuna did that for Bhishma. He shot an arrow, and this water came up, and Bhishma was able to drink water. And but then at this part of the Bhagavatam, Bhishmadeva is preparing to leave his body, and he's offering prayers to Krishna. And that we're reading that now. He's saying these things as he's laying there on the battlefield. He's remembering Krishna, and he's saying, I remember how Krishna broke his own promise for me and came running at me. And at that moment, he was like a lion defeating an elephant, and his garments came off. But it's in almost every chapter. In chapter 2 we have these instructions of the first canto. In chapter 2 we have these instructions of Sutta Goswami. In chapter 3 we have a recitation by Sutta Goswami of the avatars. In chapter 4 we have this situation set up where Narada Muni comes to instruct Vyasadeva, and then in chapter 5 we have this beautiful set of prayers where Narada Muni glorifies the Srimad Bhagavatam, instructing Vyasadeva why he has to write the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then in chapter 7 we have these prayers about how that we recite them in our little blue book. We have some of them about how Vyasadeva meditated, and in his meditation he saw Krishna and his energy under full control, and he described the Srimad Bhagavatam because most people are suffering miseries which are really superfluous to them, but through the linking process of bhakti yoga they can get out of it. Then in chapter 8 we have the prayers of Queen Kunti, very, very special prayers that those prayers of Queen Kunti are a wonderful chapter where you can meditate and you can memorize those prayers and recite them. I myself recite chapter 2 all the time. It's 34 verses long, and when I'm in my car driving somewhere, it's just I have a little downtime where instead of turning on the radio and listening to NPR or something like that, I can recite chapter 2, because I have it in my memory. And a lot of these things, they have blessings. When you hear the story, and then we have to hear Bhishmadeva, the passing away of Bhishmadeva, and later we're going to get the Pandavas retiring, and at the end of the chapter it says anyone who hears this with full devotion or with reverence or with attention, I think it says in that case with faith, with devotional faith, then they can achieve liberation, or they can achieve love of God, or things like that.
So that would be considered a prayer.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna shows the universal form to Arjuna. And then Arjuna offers all these prayers, oh my Lord, I see you devouring everything, and and he's the world. Stane Rishikesha Tava Prakritya Jagat Pravishat Anirajyate. He's saying, the world becomes joyful upon hearing your name, and the demons are running away in fear, and the saints are saying all peace so these prayers of Arjuna in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita are a good place to hear prayers. But here we go in practically in every chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. You have the story setting things up, and then you have usually some devotee. Prahlad Maharaj offers prayers to Lord Nrsingadev.
So is it mainly in the Srimad Bhagavatam? Are the prayers at the end of the chapter?
Different places. Sometimes they straddle several chapters. Okay. And just like we have the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna speaks in 18 chapters, right, the whole essence of Vedic philosophy to Arjuna, there's another 20-something chapters, 23 chapters of the 11th canto where Krishna speaks to Uddhava in more detail, the same kind of instructions. Okay. And this Uddhava Gita is like a great, essence of Krishna's own instructions. Krishna himself explaining everything about Varnashram Dharma and deity worship and yoga and the soul and God and nature and stuff. So there are prayers and there are instructions. Kapila Dev instructs his mother Devahuti about devotional service, and also about the material elements, and the Sankhya, the division of the world into different material elements in the third canto. In the fourth canto, Narada Muni tells a long allegorical story to King Prachinabarhishat about King Puranjana, and there are many prayers. In the sixth canto, Daksha recites prayers. You'll as you read the Bhagavatam, you'll see, and they don't always come at one part of the chapter, like they come at the end. Sometimes they straddle 2 chapters or 3 chapters, but they're set pieces. You could see the way the action goes is that some situation is set up and some devotee is put in a particular situation, either of difficulty or, and then that Gajendra, there's a great example of prayers. Gajendra is this elephant, and you're told the backstory about how previously he was this king Indrajumna, and he was meditating and he offended a sage and he was cursed to be an elephant, but an elephant in the heavenly planets, and so he was thinking himself very happy, enjoying with so many she-elephants, and in this very beautiful part of, and there's a real natural description of all the different kinds of plants and fruits and things that were there in this beautiful area with mountains and lakes, and he was in this beautiful lake enjoying as an elephant does, and attacked by a crocodile, and he was struggling with the crocodile, and because he was in the water, he couldn't get energy, but the crocodile was in his own natural element, and he could stay nourished. And for a long time they were struggling. And then he remembered a prayer that from a previous life, and he picked up a lotus flower with his trunk and offered it to Krishna, and he recited this prayer. And then, reciting those prayers, then Krishna came down on the back of Garuda and killed the crocodile, and the crocodile, showed that he was really a Gandharva. There was another backstory about who that crocodile was and stuff. But the prayers are there of Gajendra.
Which canto?
Eighth canto.
And do you know the chapter?
No, it's more than one chapter again, but I don't know exactly which chapter. Gajendra. So that the Bhagavatam proceeds like that. People meet each other. And, even here in the beginning we have Shaunaka on behalf of the rishis, and Srila Prabhupada explained, just like sometimes we go, I talked about the Oscars, there'll be an MC, right? Billy Crystal will stand up and he'll tell jokes and insult people, but all in good fun, and then people will come up and present awards and they'll make speeches and say thank you so much and stuff. So there's these things are very human. So in these gatherings, like they have all these sages there, and someone has to be the host. He's like an older, saintly man, and in this case it's Shaunaka Rishi, and he's speaking on behalf of all these sages who are gathered to do a sacrifice in order to counteract the effects of Kali Yuga. And then there's the representative of Vyasadeva, who Lord Balaram has established as Sutta Goswami, and he's speaking to them, and Shaunaka Rishi represents the sages, and he asks questions, and it's like a ceremony. It's a very human thing, and they'll praise each other. Oh, Sutta Goswami, you have satisfied your spiritual masters with your good qualities, and therefore they bestowed upon you all the Vedic knowledge, and now please tell us what's the best for human society. And there's these discussions going on, and then they ask, like I'm just reading right now, chapter 16, I think, and he's saying, well, why did Kali not kill? Why did Parikshit Maharaj not kill the personality of Kali when he was dressed as a king and he was a low-class person and he was torturing a cow and a bull? And why did he just punish him rather than killing him? And then he says, if it's related to Krishna, tell us, because we only want to hear about Krishna, and the devotees like to drink up the honey that's dripping on the lotus feet of Krishna, and so we only want to hear about that. And he says that we've invited Yamaraj here. Lord Yamaraj, the King of Death, is also in this assembly listening to you describe the pastimes of Krishna. As long as Yamaraj is here, none of us will die, because he's the Lord of Death, and as long as his attention is focused on the descriptions of Krishna, then death can't bother us at all. There's this. So the Bhagavatam is full of these beautiful explanations and descriptions of Krishna, and almost every chapter you'll find that some situation gets described, and then someone starts praying or instructing, and in those prayers and instructions, all the philosophy is contained in a very perfect way, because like Vedanta Sutra is too hard for somebody to understand. It's all in codes. You have a little aphorism, rasovai saha, janmadyasya yataha, and then someone has to unpack the meaning of these things, these little aphorisms that, he is the reservoir of rasa, what does it mean? But then in the Srimad Bhagavatam, you have people like giving the real explanation, how Krishna exists. He's the absolute truth. He exists above the modes of nature, but he's still a person. And, they explain all that in great detail. And in the proper, and we see it in the proper setting, in the proper mood. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna arranges the setting that the battle is just going to begin. What a dramatic setting. And that, Arjuna is perplexed. Why should I be doing something, fighting, and something that seems inauspicious? And, it reminds us of our own situation, that we have to face things in our lives and do things in our lives. And Arjuna is even a greater, much more dramatic thing, where he has to kill his relatives, and that's his duty. And how his life, sort of fate has handed him this mission that he's there. He's a great general, great warrior. He was born for this, but at the same time he's thinking, what will be the good that will come out of this? And he's also representing ourselves. He's thinking in false ego. He's thinking in terms of himself. Won't I incur sin? How will I be happy enjoying the kingdom after I killed all my relatives? And then Krishna explains, you're thinking wrong. You're not seeing the spiritual side of things. You're not seeing that you're the spirit soul and they're spirit souls, and I'm God, and everything should be done for how I will be pleased, and this is what I want to happen, like that. But so the Bhagavatam is really full of, and as we read the Bhagavatam, and we'll come across over and over again the prayers of the different residents of different planets, like Kim Purusha Varsha. They're giving different prayers, or prayers. Radharani is chastising a bumblebee, though they don't say it's Radharani, but Gopi is, or the gopis themselves are, talking about Krishna's flute, or there's so many different situations where devotees express themselves, and they express themselves. The six Goswamis have demonstrated how these different rasas fit together. So they express themselves just befitting their own mood and their own relationship with Krishna, and they say things to each other. But those things that they say are better. What was I was just reading where, Krishna leaves Hastinapur. And so the ladies of the city gather on the roofs of the buildings to get a glimpse of Krishna as he goes, and they start talking about Krishna's family and Krishna's queens in Dwarka and also the gopis in Vrindavan and stuff. But this discussion of these ladies, you have this image of, gossiping ladies in town standing on the roofs of the buildings and seeing something going on. But it says that what they said were more, important than the Vedic hymns. They were better than the Vedic hymns, So they're just ladies talking, but they're devotees. They're pure devotees talking about Krishna, and they're more full of meaning and full of more glorious than the actual Vedas with which that come when the universe is created, the instructions of the whole universe. And then Krishna comes to Dwarka, and then the people start welcoming Krishna and praying to him when he comes to Dwarka, and the Brahmanas say things, and the different, and the Bhagavatam is, so it's full of like that, and those things that people say. Narada Muni will come, and someone will glorify Narada Muni, or he'll give instructions. He gives instructions about Varnashram Dharma to Maharaj Yudhishthir, or there'll be the 9 Yogendras will give instructions to Maharaj Nimi. And so the Bhagavatam is full of the prayers and instructions that can be sort of memorized and recited. And in them is the very essential Vedic knowledge, more essential than Vedic knowledge. It's sweeter. It's the ripened fruit. Nigama kalpa taror galitam palam sukamakadam ritidrava samyutam. It's the whole, if you take the Vedas is considered like a desire tree. And then that desire tree has a fruit. And that, so it's not just the whole tree, but you get the essential, the fruit. And then that fruit is made even sweeter by being explained by Shukadev Goswami, who's like a parrot. When you cut a fruit, it becomes sugary where it's cut. So if like a parrot comes and bites a mango or something like that, then it's made sweeter where the parrot has cut it. In this case, Shukadev is the parrot. His name Shuka means parrot. So, and he's speaking the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so this, the Bhagavatam is like the essence of all the whole Vedic wisdom and Vedic culture. And then it's made like Atma Tattva Prabhu said, it's like you take this jackfruit, but you peel it and you take the best part out of it, and then you put it nicely on a plate and you cover it with honey, and it's just, it's just the real, the best of everything without all the, you don't have to go through all the difficult or less important things and find the essence. It's all essence. It's all wonderful.
All right. Thank you.
So, anything else, or should we have Guru Puja now? Let's all put the books and seats away, and we'll have Guru Puja. Bhishmadev ki jai.
श्री गुरु चरण पद्मा केवल भक्ति सद्मा वंदो मोहि सावधान मादे जहर प्रसादे बाई ए भाव तोरिया जाय कृष्ण प्राप्ति होई जाओ तेरे कृष्ण प्राप्ति होई जाओ तेरे गुरुमुख पद्म वाक्य चित्त दे कोरिया ऐक्य आर न करियो मने आशा हार न करियो मने आशा श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति ये प्रसाद पूरे सर्व आशा ये प्रसाद पूरे सर्व आशा चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होय दया विद्या विनाश होते गाय जार चरित श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अदम जनार बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अदम जनार बंधु लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवन हाँ प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया ए बेजाय गुशक्ति रुवाना वैष्णव चरण रेणु भूषण कोरियतनु यहाँ होय ते अनुभव પ્રભુ કરો દયા દેહો મોરે પદ છાયા બેયાય ગ્રીષ વિદ્વાના શીલા પ્રભુપાદ પતિત પાવાના પ્રભુપદ જય પ્રભુપદ જય પ્રભુપદ જય પ્રભુપદ જય જય પ્રભુપાદ 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 જય જય પ્રભુપાદ પ્રભુપાદ જય જય પ્રભુપાદ 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 જય જય પ્રભુપાદ જય શ્રી કૃષ્ણ ચૈતન્ય પ્રભુ નિત્યાનંદ શ્રી અદ્વૈતા ગદાધર શ્રીવાસાદિ ગૌર ભક્તવૃંદ શ્રી કૃષ્ણ ચૈતન્ય પ્રભુ નિત્યાનંદ શ્રી અદ્વૈતા ગદાધર શ્રીવાસાદિ ગૌર ભક્તવૃંદ Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinandana, Gaura Hari, Jai Sachinandana, Gaura Hari. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe, Jayo Radha Madan Mohan Radha Madan Mohan Radhe, Jayo Radhe, Jayo Radhe, Jayo Radhe, Jayo Shri Radhe. Gaur Premanande.
Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Privrajacharya Stotarasata Shri Shrimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charanarabinda, Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Savior of the World Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Privrajacharya Stotarasata Shri Shrimad, His Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Basari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, ISKCON Silicon Valley Yatra Ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Miracle on Latham Street, 19,065 Bhagavad Gita's distributed Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga Hari Hari Bol. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna.